Good afternoon, and welcome to another nostalgic episode of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your Nostradamus of Nostrum, Voice of Doom. Hello. Okay, I thought I'd do another diatribe, even though it's a waste of time. And still waiting for everyone to catch up with what I've already said years ago, if not months. So it's very annoying to keep doing this. And we'll see what happens with the future of diatribes, but it's not going to go anywhere. It never will. And I really don't care. Sorry to my fans, Nick and Mofo and Crazy Wabbit, my three stalwart fans. But I'm not going to talk too much about the idiocy and the conflagration or the utter corruption or the fact that we no longer have a country, because I've said it over and over again and I'm sick of saying it. They're not going to do anything about anything. They're not going to impeach Petri dish. The no account son will not do 1 minute of time in any kind of prison. I don't care how many taxes he evaded. Doesn't matter. We know that there's elitists. We know that we cannot punish any elitist because it would expose ourselves. He let one little chink into the armor of the Immaculate Conception, called what used to be the United States, and everything will fall apart. So all of our leaders are sacrosanct. They are all faultless, and they will never be punished for anything. And they will be allowed their booty, they will be allowed their sop, and live in luxury, because that's just the way it is. Certain people were born on this planet in order to destroy it and live in luxury. So let's forget about that. Let's do something more fun, a little more lighthearted. We'll talk about a year in the past. It was rather a lighthearted year, happy-go-lucky. Kind of like Happy Days. Where were you in 62? Good times. I'm just going to do like a sequel to my 1939 diatribe from past days, where I did a parallel compare and contrast of 1939 with 2023. And there are many. Go back and watch it. But this one's called 1968, which was a very carefree year. Not much going on. I'm going to start with a little quiz. I'm going to give you 6 names like I did last time. And you might be lucky to get one. People that are very astute in history might get 2. And people that are geniuses that have photographic memories will get all 6. So here's the 6 names: Tommy Smith, John Carlos, Bill Anders, Lloyd M. Butcher, John Froines, Nichelle Nichols. Disparate group. Not much in common with each other except for the first 2. And I'll let you think about that while I go through this timeline of history. 1968, January 23rd. USS Pueblo taken over by the North Koreans. After a scuffle and a skirmish, the crew was taken hostage, and they were left hostage for quite a while. They were tortured, they were beaten, they were accused of being spies, which they were. But it was commanded by Captain Lloyd M. Butcher. There's answer one. Saw a movie about it back when I was a kid with Hal Holbrook. It was a good movie. And it was pretty vicious for that day and age. It was made for TV. January 30th, Tet Offensive. We had been in Vietnam for a few years, and in 1968, early in the year, many Vietnamese had a blitzkrieg on the U.S. Strongholds in Vietnam, South Vietnam. And it was an all-out ambush, and many soldiers were killed, and the powers that be realized that the war was lost on that day. And yet we continued to fight for another 4 years. So that was the turning point. April 4th, a man by the name of Martin Luther King Jr. was gunned down in Memphis at the Hotel Lorraine by a gunman who shall remain nameless because we really don't know who it was. I have my theories, but we won't speak of such things. June 5th, Robert F. Kennedy killed. This was 2 months later, one assassination after another, when a U.S. used to be president was assassinated in broad daylight 5 years earlier. Okay. RFK was killed, and his own son says that it was an inside job. That Sirhan Sirhan, who served over 50 years in prison for the assassination, didn't get one shot into RFK. 6 of his bullets were shot, but none of them hit RFK. And yet RFK was killed at the back of the head, right behind the ear. All right. So his own son says it's an inside job. Now, we won't go too much into that. But I think the people that are involved are mostly dead now. So far the year's getting off to a great start. A little bit of, not too much action for the next few months. But the political atmosphere is thrown into a tumult and thrown into chaos because RFK was the front runner and he was going to be elected president. He was extremely popular with everybody. Everybody loved RFK. I remember it distinctly. I was in 4th grade. I was just starting to get into politics. And he was a shoo-in, and that was not going to be allowed to happen by the powers that be, because he would pick up where his brother left off. He would get us out of Vietnam. And he had a bone to pick with the organized criminals. And so this just wasn't going to fly, because we need chaos, we need war in order to keep the economy going. It was painfully obvious by 1968 that the military-industrial was keeping our economy afloat. So that's how that went down. But since there was chaos in the political sphere, they had a Democratic National Convention in August 26th. I think we all remember what happened. That was, what happened? Well, I did a diatribe a few months ago, maybe a year, about the Chicago 7, Chicago 8, who became the Chicago 7, and I did a whole rundown, so you can go back to that and get the details. One of the Chicago 7 was a man named John Freunds, and I don't remember his exact position, but the 7 represented the 7 factions of the progressive left-wing radicals, pinkos, anti-war, crazies. Abby Hoffman had the Yippies. And there was a congressman in there named, whatever his name was, Mary Jane Fonda. You can go back to that. I don't want to remember it all again. But DNC riots, and it's always during the Democratic conventions that the riots and the mayhem happen. I can't remember one Republican national convention where there was, more than your usual amount of mayhem, which you will always have inside and outside a political convention. But the radical left always seems to want to gravitate toward the DNC. Now, I don't know why that is. The DNC is supposed to be their buddies, their friends, their lifelong pals. But they always disrupt their little get-togethers. And I'll tell you a little experience I had in 2000. I went to the DNC in LA. I took the subway because I knew it'd be a mess, and the subway was very efficient. You could take it from Hollywood right into downtown LA, get out, go up the stairs, and be right in the middle of everything without worrying about parking or getting my car stolen. And then go back the same way. I was just hanging around outside. I was not inside the DNC. By that time, I had disavowed the Democrat Party. I wouldn't set foot anywhere near where they are gathering. But there was a big party outside, and there was Cubans, and there was lefties, and there was all kinds of people. And this was before the phone became big. So I had my little camcorder. I was taking footage and doing interviews just like they do now. You see, I was doing it long before any of these people were born. Going around with my camera, I was talking to Cubans who were shouting about Castro and all kinds of things. It was a war zone without the war. It was rows and rows and rows of cop cars here, rows and rows and rows of cop motorcycles over here, helicopters circling around everywhere. It seemed like Vietnam, and the background music was Rage Against the Machine, so I had that as my background, and it was a beautiful video. I don't know what's become of it, but it was really good because everything came together for me. Now, the police said they got up on the podium while a really cool Mexican type band was playing. They were part, I don't know what they were, Tejano, and part ska, and part, it was great stuff. And they were playing, and the cop comes on and says, "Get off the fence, you're not allowed to be on the fence. This chain link fence was about 15 feet high, and if you don't get off the fence, we're pulling the plug on this whole thing." And do you think they got off the fence compliantly? No, they did not. So right in the middle of a song, they pulled the plug, and then the tumult started. Then the riot started. And it was utter mayhem. And I saw people that had been waiting for their chance to go and march into the party. They had their flags, and they were black nationalists, what have you, I don't know what. And they were waiting to make their big entrance, and by the time they made their entrance, the police had shut down the damn convention. Okay, so they wanted to go through anyway, and then the rubber bullets started flying because they were told explicitly, no marching, this is done, you're all told to disperse. They wanted to go anyway, and then they got the rubber bullets. I was right there. I'm lucky I didn't get a rubber bullet in my leg, but I went off into a little alcove along the side of the road to steer clear of all this. And then on the next day I heard the black nationalist on the Larry Elder show, and he told a completely different story than what I saw with my own eyes. That's when I realized that the news is, well, what you hear is wrong from what you see in reality. I just came to some. So, let's move on. September 30th, first 747 takes off. This introduction, just a technological thing that changed the world forever because they could carry more people, and they still use 747s to this day. October 16th, they had an Olympic Games. I believe it was Mexico City. And it was the first time we saw a political statement being demonstrated at a podium on the Olympic Games. Tommy Smith and John Carlos raised their hands like this. Black power. They had their heads bowed for the national anthem. Now, in this day and age, they would have statues carved of them and put in the middle of D.C. on the mall. But in those days, they were lambasted, pilloried, and they were stripped. Not literally, but they had their medals, I believe, taken away, and they were asked to leave the team that they were on. And I don't think they ever ran again. That was for holding up their fist, black power, and bowing their heads. So you see how things have changed. So Tommy Smith and John Carlos, that's 4 out of 6 I've told you about. November 22nd. Captain Kirk kisses Lieutenant Uhura on the lips. A major, major breakthrough in television history. Uhura played by Nichelle Nichols. And the reason they were able to do that was because all the crew was under a spell of mind control. And so the mind controllers forced Kirk to kiss Uhura. Otherwise, it just wouldn't have flown. Even it's out of protocol for a captain to kiss a lieutenant. But there would be no way that they could have an interracial kiss on television, the first one, without some pretext of being that they were forced to. I just found that interesting. And then we come to the end of the year, December 24th, Christmas Eve. Apollo 8 is shot up into space, and it is first spacecraft, manned to circle the moon and come back again. And now it sounds like nothing now, but back then it was a big deal. People watched the TV set. They knew that there was going to be a moon landing soon, and that someone would walk on the moon within the next year or two. But this was the precursor. And Apollo 8 was a big deal to everybody. And people still know who they were. James Lovell, who was in Apollo 13, great movie. Bill Anders, the last person on the list. And Frank Borman, who recently died. People were excited about that. And that kind of was the end of 1968. It ended on a high note, literally and figuratively. But I thought that would be an interesting little diatribe for you. Instead of me ranting and raving and saying everything is hopeless and we're all doomed and we'll all be dead soon, I just thought I'd give you a little history about a year in the life of what used to be the United States. So I'll leave it there. I think this was a pretty good one, and I hope you enjoy it, especially to my stalwart fans. And feel free to comment, even if it's just to say, nice to hear from you again. Anything is good, because I get nothing. So, have a good day. I'm going to enjoy my day. It's my day off. I'll tell you about the chaos of the microcosm next time, because it's not too good. All right. Goodbye.